Nurses, doctors, paramedics, frontline health workers. We've worked together for 134 years. Today is no different. The Johnson & Johnson family of companies and the Johnson & Johnson Foundation have committed $50 million to support and supply you during COVID-19 with things like meals, protective equipment, extra training, and mental health support. You've always been there for us. We'll always be here for you.
Welcome to IdeaGen TV. Today we are thrilled to have with us Jane Addams, Vice President for Government Affairs North America at Johnson & Johnson. Jane, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, George.
Incredible to have you today here with us on IdeaGen TV, Jane, especially during these times. Could you tell our global audience a little bit about yourself and some of the work that you're doing as Vice President for Government Affairs for North America at J&J?
Thanks, George, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. Johnson & Johnson is the world's largest and most diversified healthcare company. So our commitments are broad, our sectors are large, but we have a commitment to providing support and products and services to global communities, especially in communities of unmet patient need. So we play in three sectors. Biopharmaceuticals, our consumer health products that most people know us for, our baby brand, and the consumer products that you can pick up at the grocery store or the pharmacy, and then our medical technology and data analytics. So we have a very, again, kind of large touch point with consumers and patients around the world.
An incredible breadth and depth of impact, of course. And how have you seen the use of innovation? We know that J&J is a leader in innovation. I go a step further and say you've created innovation, the whole concept of innovation. You led, are leading, and continue to lead. How have you seen the use of innovation as we all work through this global situation?
Yeah, it's a great question. And innovation is a really broad subject that I think some people say, innovation, what does that even mean? But we like to look at innovation in not just ways about R&D. You know, we spend $11.5 billion in global innovation when it comes to development of our platforms and our products and our pipeline. But innovation also means leadership. Innovation also means leading by example and commitment and innovative programs for our partners, for our employees, in addition to the innovation that we see that is development of, again, a product or a service. And so, you know, innovation for us is a mindset. It's not just a check the box or something that we're able to define in a couple sentences. It's something that we live, that's really generated by our credo. And Johnson & Johnson's credo, you know, has us look at a number of key stakeholders. And if we do all of that right and we take care of those, then of course we're going to be a stable, financially stable company that is able to continue to invest in innovation. And our credo really guides us to embrace and live our innovation mindset. But yes, innovation is our heritage and our history from our 133 plus years ago. That's why, again, we're the world's largest and most diversified healthcare company, touching, you know, over 1 billion patients and consumers every single day.
And, you know, I'm very familiar with your credo. I love how it's stamped literally into the wall in your headquarters lobby.
Yes.
It's striking and it's powerful in its impact and its statement. And so what would you say, Jane, is the best approach to help achieve good health and well-being, which is goal number 3 of the United Nations global goals? And how have you seen J&J play a role?
Yeah, thank you for referencing our credo, because it really is at the core of everything we do, everything we are, how we approach problem solving, how we approach partnerships. And I love kind of goal number 3, but actually looking at all 17 goals, there's so much to talk about that J&J is aligned and committed to, you know, to all of our goals. But our credo is really, and J&J was really built for the crisis that we're experiencing right now. Because when we look at, you know, our size and our diversification, we've always talked about using our size for good. And in a diversified enterprise like Johnson & Johnson, we have different areas that we've been able, you talked earlier about innovation. How do we innovate and collaborate in between the sectors that we lead and represent? And we've been able to do that by looking at this, incredibly challenging global health crisis, not just from our lead vaccine candidate in development in the vaccine space, therapeutics, complexities in the supply chain and making sure that there aren't shortages, as our commitment to our customers, to our patients, but also we're able to look at the pandemic and provide a health and safe place for our own employees. We have 135,000 global employees. 60,000 of those employees are actually in the global supply chain, and over 40% of our employees never had the option to work from home, because we have a commitment to, again, our customers and to our consumers and our patients, to make sure that there's not disruptions in the products that they rely on, whether they're life-saving or life-enhancing. And so again, while some of us are currently working from home to make sure that we're maintaining the health and safety and well-being of those who are going in to the labs every day and going into the manufacturing facilities every day. So I think Johnson & Johnson has made a commitment over a century about making sure that our employees are not only safe physically, but providing resources for mental health during such a challenging time. Those who are isolated, those who are dealing with incredible family responsibilities and strains. And I think that's why there's such a kind of a pride to work for a company that recognizes, per our credo, that employees must be healthy and well. In order to take care of others, we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And it's maybe a great opportunity to talk about how Johnson & Johnson really commits to global priorities, which I'm happy to talk about in a minute, but also our own Johnson & Johnson sustainability and development goals, with an actual scorecard and accountability standards that we are committed to, and being the most robust and understanding and trusted employer. It gives us a voice outside or in addition to being a leader in healthcare.
Jane, what an incredible company, and what a privilege to be having this conversation today with you, because clearly Johnson & Johnson is leading on so many different levels, and it takes leadership along with all of your colleagues across the planet that are working daily to help change the world, especially during this time. And so that leads us to what is on everyone's mind, which is a vaccine. Could you kindly help to explain to our global audience what that road looks like to a vaccine, and how J&J is helping to lead this charge?
Sure. That is on everyone's mind. And we have a lot of discussions about our own vaccine progress. When we learned of the burgeoning kind of pandemic in January, Johnson & Johnson made the immediate decision to engage completely. We do have a track record of success with a certain platform in vaccine development. We have our Ebola vaccine that was approved in Europe July 1st, and that's being used in Africa right now. We've been committed again to vaccine development for a long time. And again, with the track record, we have the platforms that existed to help us look at how we can address this global crisis quickly. Now, remember that vaccine platforms and vaccine development timelines are typically 5 to 7, even 10 years. And because of the urgency of the pandemic, we were able to harness, again, the successes that we've had in not just Ebola, but in Zika. We are in phase 3 in actually HIV, and have a significant commitment globally to HIV research and deployment of resources and clinical trials, RSV. And so we were able to leverage that experience, the intellectual resources we have, and deploy that to trying to address the global pandemic and the COVID-19 environment. And so what we've been able to do is work around the clock with our global partners R&D. I do want to say that one of the questions we've gotten, though, is because we're so focused on the vaccine candidate, what about the other products and that patients around the world need? And I think that's where, again, our size and our scale can be used for good, that there will not be, and there haven't been any disruptions in the life-saving medicines and technologies that are provided to patients every day. But we've been able to convert our focus while maintaining focus, in our priority platforms and areas, to look at how we move forward with the development. And I'm really happy to report that our incredibly robust phase 1 and 2 trials have led us to move into our phase 3 human trials this month, actually. And we will be, in human trials all over the globe. Here in the United States, we've partnered significantly with the US government and with BARDA, the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, who is contributing, federal dollars, US federal dollars for our R&D effort. We have partnerships, again, all over the world for the clinical trial arrangements. We also are very committed to diversity in clinical trials. And as you know, George, this pandemic has so unfortunately impacted disproportionately communities of color, the aged population, seniors. Obviously, frontline health workers are at great risk. And so our trials are conducted and constructed in a way that we're able to gain the most data to make sure that it's not only safe and effective, that's a given, but there are ways to validate that data based on the communities that have been most impacted. And so those trials are being established again right now. We do anticipate that, for us moving forward along the pace that we expect to continue to see, will be, Q1 of 2021. I want to take this opportunity too to say that there's been, especially in the United States, I think on both sides of the political aisle, both chambers, a lot of politicization of the vaccine and of the pandemic. And we recognize there's a very pivotal, significant, election coming up in 49 days, I believe. And so my kind of plea is that let manufacturers, let healthcare professionals who are trying to save lives, as we're trying to do, let us do our jobs. And while we want to share and be transparent about our progress and about our endpoints and about what we're doing with partnering with the agencies and suppliers and manufacturers all over the world in the R&D community, this is not about politics right now. This is about saving lives. We can't save the lives that have already been lost around the globe, but the more that companies like Johnson & Johnson and others who are involved in this space can be free to move forward with the science and to move forward with the data on a timeline that's safe and effective, irrespective of different, political views. Again, it's not one-sided, it's both sides. I would just urge us to be respectful of the people who are working full-time that have safety and efficacy as a focus and not kind of the political dynamics. And that's, the timing is very difficult right now, but I would just urge us to kind of pause for a moment and appreciate that consideration for those who are, again, trying to do everything they can to save lives.
Well, Jane, so incredibly well said, and such incredible insights for our global audience to see and hear from you. And we also were able to see recently the collective pledge by pharma CEOs, including your CEO, Alex Gorsky. And I think that gives, not only the American people, but people across the world that confidence that a company like Johnson & Johnson, which lives by a credo, will adhere to that always. And I think we can be all assured that whatever endpoint comes down for the distribution of a safe and effective vaccine, that Johnson & Johnson will be at the fore of that, and we can trust that it will be safe and effective. So that's absolutely incredible. And thank you for mentioning that, because it's on everyone's mind. We can't escape it at the moment. So,
and George, I just want to say thank you for bringing up the pledge. I think Johnson & Johnson, and I can't speak for the other companies who signed, but, we work together as an industry. And look, the pharmaceutical industry, fierce competitors. But I think this is a great example of how industry has bonded to actually innovate, going back to our earlier conversation, and say, I firmly believe that there will be more than one vaccine, and that, the global populations will have access, whether you're in a developed and wealthy country like the United States or the developing countries around the world. And so I know that science is bringing forward maybe not just one vaccine, but multiple vaccines, and we're working on what that distribution framework looks like. And so I think that goes to show that our focus on innovation and doing what's right for global populations around the world is really important. And the pledge is really to reinforce, Johnson & Johnson. The reason that we signed it and that we're so supportive is that we've always believed, and we've always been vocal about, a strong FDA and the strong regulatory agencies, not just in the United States, but around the world. And our commitment, again, to patients, to consumers, to customers, that doesn't change. It doesn't change despite what I was just talking about as far as kind of the politics around the vaccine and the pandemic. We stay true to not just our credo, but again, to the patients we serve. And it's a reminder that that's the confidence that we hope that not just the American people, but global populations have in not only Johnson & Johnson, but our industry and our commitment to deliver on a safe product.
Jane, you give us incredible hope and give us incredible inspiration, obviously. And what would you say has been the most rewarding moment for you and Johnson & Johnson as we all battle through this pandemic? And what has made it so rewarding?
Going back to your original comment about innovation, I think we've all spent so much time together, but in a way that's different. We're, working remotely, many of us. People are working around the clock. We've never seen kind of the pace and the frenetic pace, I should say, of, urgency and the call to deliver. What has been rewarding is to see the new innovations and the collaboration, and how not just our team at Johnson & Johnson, but also our global colleagues, everyone has had to adapt. And instead of, kind of complaining and recognizing how difficult the pace is and how challenging the priorities can be, everyone is looking at the greater good. And while that's something that we live every day at Johnson & Johnson, I think the pandemic and our desire to help in every way, from facilitation of, local venues to make sure that they have what they need, from, PPE to communications with our own facilities, to global public policy efforts around, again, vaccine accessibility. It has been so rewarding to see that a company like Johnson & Johnson is able to harness the very large and sometimes disparate parts of our organization to come together for a common good and a common goal. We have 3 separate sectors that are very leaders within their own environments, but we are seeing that we come together for, again, this greater good. And I think that, to me, has been one of the greatest rewards as we continue to move forward and look at the pandemic on how we can further our own priority platforms that have to do with frontline health workers, very timely, with global maternal health. That's a priority for ours, and very, very acute now during the pandemic. And so our commitment to, again, our sustainability and development goals that have to do with diversity and inclusion, and our commitment to climate and environmental health and better health for all, this gives us an opportunity to further those. But I've just been simply, humbled and amazed by how a company as large and diversified as ours has been able to come together as one family for, the end goal of trying to save lives. So I hope that doesn't sound too cliched about being proud of my company, but I would say my team and the company and the colleagues I work with every day around the world, I have been learned so much and been inspired by every single minute.
Well, and that tone has been set by your leadership and by you and by all of your colleagues, the freedom, the authenticity, and the belief in that credo and the mission of Johnson & Johnson. And what I really enjoyed hearing from you is, while we're talking about what we're facing globally with this pandemic, what I really liked was the fact that Johnson & Johnson has not let the foot off the pedal, if you may, on all of the other areas that are equally critical, all of the other disease solutions that you're working on, all of the pharmaceutical areas and products and everything that makes everyone's life perhaps more livable despite the maladies that people face across the planet in their health journeys, right? So as we look at these global goals, Jane, you mentioned several, and we know Johnson & Johnson is helping and measuring your progress against achieving those goals. What do you see as your 3 key insights for achieving those global goals by 2030?
Yeah, well, if I could just take a minute to, again, reiterate the Johnson & Johnson commitment on our own sustainability and development goals, and that has to do with, better health for all. And that really is not just as an employer, as we talked about, but better health for all around the globe. And while it's broad, we have very, kind of specific measuring opportunities and accountability metrics that we have to align not only with the UN goals and the World Health Organization and other global organizations, but again, the accountability that we have as an employer, but also as the largest and most diversified healthcare company. We also take a significant responsibility for responsible business practices. And that's, again, where we are committed to not just diversity and inclusion, but to, talent for all, for connection with our suppliers and our global supply chain that is essential to any of our success as far as delivering, product around the globe. And then, as I mentioned, kind of our environmental health commitments. And that's, everything from making sure that we're addressing emission reduction to, to climate, to collaborations and partnerships with coalitions around the globe, and what it means for the facilities and the, whether they're manufacturing or employee facilities around the globe. For Johnson & Johnson, we have such a significant and broad reach when it comes to partnerships in all spaces. And so what we feel committed to doing is to making sure that we are sharing not only, our commitment on training and investment and resources and impacting global government, policies and regulatory platforms around the world, but that we're sharing that with the partners who ensure success for all of us around the world. So I think, are there 3 things? I don't know that I can name necessarily 3, but I would say those 3 platforms for our own J&J sustainability and development goals are something that is kind of a North Star to all employees at J&J. And then some of our other priority platforms that I talked about, our commitment to frontline health workers, our commitment to global maternal health, preventing maternal death is one of the most, I think, challenging but great opportunities we have, because so many of, especially women of color, who are dying in childbirth, it can be prevented. So what are we doing to not just help educate and provide resources to the women and their newborn babies, but also the healthcare professionals who are treating them? So I would say all of our platforms fit within these sustainability and development goals. And they're broad, they're significant. But when we talk about better healthcare for all, responsible business practices, and environmental health, most everything we do can be captured into those categories. And it's lengthy as far as our commitments and, again, our scorecard. But we also look at the overarching, commitment to our credo and how the credo drives everything that we do. I'm here with my North America team and my Washington Federal Affairs team, but also what we do globally in our partnerships with governments.
And so, Jane, the that commitment and that vision is what's so incredibly inspiring for the global audience that's watching today. And cross-sector collaboration comes up. We know Johnson & Johnson is committed to partnerships. And we know that you look at it from a cross-sector lens. Why is cross-sector collaboration combined with effective leadership so incredibly vital to helping to solve so many of the world's most vexing issues?
Right. It's a really important question and a timely one. And I think, when I was talking about maternal health, maternal health, can really incorporate all of our sectors. So when I talked about kind of how siloed maybe the sectors may seem, we are always looking at ways to find more convergence and collaboration. And whether it's addressing atrial fibrillation, whether it's addressing maternal health from a mental health perspective, an educational perspective, our consumer products perspective, from a surgical perspective, this really brings together the diversification at Johnson & Johnson. And George, you've heard our CEO, Alex Gorsky, say many times, who's so fond of idea gen and of you, that we have to look at how we are more effective the more we come together. And again, using our size for good, using our diversification for good. And it really does spur, how do we address unmet patient need? Like we have a lung cancer initiative. And, at another time, I would love to go into, lung cancer is so often fatal because it's not detected until the very end stage. I know my own father died at an early age of lung cancer. And we commit to saying if there are better ways to actually diagnose and evaluate early on stage developments, then we may prevent individuals from actually getting to that end stage that is usually fatal. And so we look at our medical device sector from a surgical and from a diagnostic standpoint. We look at our biopharmaceuticals, sector from a therapy category, and so much that we have in our consumer and over-the-counter sector that can look at prophylactic and preventive measures. And so that's just kind of one example of where the convergence of all three sectors has made us who we are today. And that's why we're committed. I know, Wall Street always talks about should, J&J divide. We are committed to that diversification because it makes us able to be that much more effective for the patients we serve, and especially in crises like today. Because we have that knowledge, we have the size, we have the resources, and we have that innovation and collaboration to be able to take best practices from across the sector aisle and apply them where we may be in a particular urgent need in another sector. So it's been incredibly effective for our model and our structure, and we're committed to that.
Jane Addams, Vice President, North American Government Affairs, Johnson & Johnson. What is your post-summit ask for our global audience as we continue to change the world together?
My post-summit ask would be, during this just incredibly challenging time with such unspeakable pain in so many areas, not just the pandemic, but all that's going on globally, and disasters and fires and hurricanes and social injustice and global pandemic, I think my ask would just be to take care of yourself and take care of your loved ones, and to not try to solve every problem, take every day. I think we're all struggling with that. We want to do so much, but we can only be healthy for others and help solve problems for others if we can make sure that we're safe and our loved ones are safe and taken care of. So that's not exactly a policy ask or a sustainability goal, but I just want all of us to appreciate who we are, what we can do, and please take care of yourself.
Jane Addams, Leadership Defined, Vice President, Government Affairs, North America, Johnson & Johnson. Thank you so much for your inspiration today.
Thanks for having me, George. Good luck.
Our pleasure.